Associate Professor Kirsten Auret. She's an Associate Professor of Rural and Remote Medicine at the Rural Clinical School of UWA and Clinical Director of Palliative Care of WA Country Health Service. So Kirsten has been involved with the activities of compassionate communities in Albany. Right, she's in Albany, if anybody wants to know where she is. And yeah, welcome, Kirsten, and thanks for enlightening us in what's happening in Albany. Now, by the way, I have here at the table pamphlets and lovely work that they've done in Albany, if anybody wants to pick something from there. And Julian, sorry, back to you. I do have the book, the Public Health Palliative Care book, exhibited here at the table, but I realized WA Health haven't got their copy yet, or have you received it? You have? Oh, it took an awful long time. So next time we need to send them express post. In case you need more copies, let me know. Anyway, all right, welcome, Kirsten.
Thanks, Samar, and hello to everyone. And please, for everyone who's there in person, feel free to hop up and grab those things that are out the front so that you can be looking at them while I chat. I will start screen sharing, so bear with me a second while I get that all right. And I'm hoping you will shortly be able to see my presentation. Let me know if it comes up. Just all black for me. Ah, there we are. So are people seeing my screen?
Yes, thanks.
No problems. So I really want to start by telling you very briefly who I am. So I'm Kirsten. I'm a palliative care specialist working and living and belonging to the rural community of Albany on the south coast of Western Australia. But I'm actually feel like a bit of a fraud here because I'm presenting on behalf of a beautiful group of people that have done such amazing work, several of whom are in the room at the moment. You can see the kinds of groups that were around as we went through our Compassionate Albany Charter process. And I'm really going to focus my talk on the practical implementation of deciding that your city is going to form a charter, how we did that, what we resulted with in our work. I'm also going to share a case study with you so that you can perhaps see a little bit of how that has played out in our community. I do want to acknowledge the real lead organisations in this work, which were our city and our Primary Health Alliance, our Country Primary Health Alliance. But working down the screen, you'll see that Creative Albany was involved, carers and representatives from residential aged care, our general practice community, our beautiful Albany Community Hospice, our ambulance service, community volunteers and representatives of our DHACs and our Death Cafe movement, palliative care people and others from WA Country Health and those from Carers WA. And I was very lucky to sit on as a representation of the University of Western Australia. So where I am, for those of you that haven't ever been here, our city is working hard on renaming our places. The Menang name for Albany is Kinjarling, and I'd like to really respectfully pay my acknowledgement to the traditional owners of our land, the Menang people. Albany is a really beautiful city of about 36,000 people. We're classified as outer regional and many of the areas around us are more remote. We're a very primary care centred health service, but we do have a fantastic regional hospital, and we're blessed to have the last community-owned inpatient hospice in Western Australia. We also have an older population. We are all very well connected with our sense of place. We feel like we belong here. We want to grow up our children here. We want to grow old ourselves here, and we plan to die here. So we were blessed as part of the Greater Choice at Home palliative care measure funded by the Commonwealth Government of Australia in 2017 to gain some funding along with 10 other communities to develop a Compassionate Communities Great Southern Model. We had 4 main aims, and the main one I'm going to be talking to you today is the second, which is around developing the Compassionate Albany Charter. Although the case study will show you how increased community knowledge, skills and involvement around the social dimension of dying, death and bereavement increased, and also how our community is starting to network around those facing dying and loss. So why did we feel we needed a charter? Well, I think we understand so much from what we've heard already that the social networks that we have around us are so important to our health and well-being, and that those that have strong social connections are much more likely to have better health outcomes. But even in a rural community like ours that does band together around good times and bad, there are still many within our community that struggle to ask for and accept help and who don't have significant social networks. You'll see two quotes up here. One is from our mayor. This is what he was talking about during the process of why we needed to develop a charter. He's been reminded how much our community cares, but that the charter celebrates both the things we do well and how together we can make our place of living and home a more compassionate place. We wanted Albany to be a place where we don't cross the street to avoid someone going through a hard time, but a place where we reach out and show we care, where people will stop and ask a stranger, "Are you okay?" So obviously our city charter is very much based on Alan Callagher's work with city compassionate charters, which generally have 13 statements of values and changes that organisations within those communities can undertake. So we thought what we needed to do to start with was really envisage what does that look like for our community. So the way we did that was we held a significant number of workshops and then focus groups. We had 107 participants in total, and our workshops were a combination of community members, businesses, sporting clubs, government and other service providers, those representing the young and the slightly less young and the old, our faith groups, our community groups, our non-profit organisations. And we also specifically pulled together our elected members of the City Council, and we worked with them on a strategic workshop, and then went to particular focus groups where we asked them more specific questions about how they thought this city charter will look. We tended to use a World Cafe style where we brought people together in small groups with a table host and others that moved on. And we asked them the three questions that we were really interested in. What are we already doing in our community? What could we do to build on this? And what do we need to do to create a more compassionate community? I'm trying super hard when I look down to keep an eye on the time as well. So this is our charter. This is where we ended up. I'd like to read it to you. I belong to a community where everyone recognises we all have a part to play in supporting each other during life's toughest experiences, especially during times of hardship, illness, loneliness, death and grief. We are all touched by these challenges at some point in our lives. Let's have conversations about living well and dying well and supporting each other emotionally and practically along the way. This has been really one of our key deliverables and was a very important part of those original aims that I showed you. For those of you that are lucky enough to be in the room and have grabbed some of our beautiful postcards, the second part of our charter was where we explored 6 key value-based aspirations that were based on the feedback from our community. So these 6 ones were our shared humanity, recognising that compassion comes from the heart and starts with me. Community mindedness. Let's ask, what can I do for my community? Compassionate organisations. Let's grow, recognise and reward. Compassionate places and spaces. Let's use our places and spaces more to connect and belong. Communication and information sharing. Let's listen, let's ask, let's talk, let's share. And lastly, leadership and advocacy. Let's lead by sharing what we've learnt and listening with our hearts. So you'll see as I go through these next slides, I'm just exploring those 6 values and aspiration statements in a little bit more detail. We really wanted to be a community where people show kindness, understanding and compassion to everyone. One of the participants from our Menang Noongar focus group said, listen in an open way. Don't judge quickly our differences and tell us to just get over it. Respect our beliefs and connection to country and be open to a different way of seeing. We're encouraged to live by values of kindness, compassion, acceptance and care, and to reach out to others in our everyday activities. In community mindedness, just like we've heard, it's the little things. It's the help that doesn't cost people a lot of time. It means the world to a carer. So we're really looking here at harnessing the collective energy and goodwill of our community, encouraging people to look out for one another and to provide support. And we do have existing volunteer networks and street and neighbourhood communities, but we look to strengthen that. So people every day are creating opportunities to ask, are you okay? To stop and listen, to offer and accept help, and to be kind. And equally, we are very blessed in our compassionate organisations in this town, but we realised we do need to be more inclusive of outside of our clubs or organisations and think of the wider community, or even more what we can do within our clubs and see what we can do. We want to continue to value and support the existing services that we have that are so special, like Albany Community Hospice and our dementia support place, Hawthorne House, but also to support and build on community initiatives that address social isolation and vulnerability at any age. And as a community, we want to grow compassion in our businesses, schools, workplaces, clubs, community groups and institutions. And we want to recognise and reward those civic leaders who show us what compassionate action looks like. Compassionate places and spaces. For those of you that have been to our beautiful area, you know that we live in one of the most beautiful places in the world, and in fact have just won the most beautiful beach in the world competition, which I have to have a shout out about that. But it's really talking about creating a sense of belonging in the places where we meet, work and play, and that we do need those spaces because they perhaps aren't naturally there for everyone. It's really about thinking about things like compassion cafes, memorial gardens, and community information hubs and events. And again, our library, our town hall, and our town square are all co-located. And our library has been such an important part of this compassionate place and space response. And equally, they've helped us lead the way in communication and information sharing. Let's listen, let's ask, let's talk, and let's share. We want to feel that we can connect face to face as well as through a whole lot of other mediums, in person, in print, in digital. We need to communicate in ways that link our people, our services and our support networks. And our community felt really deeply that we needed a physical space and physical presences, people and places where someone can connect. And our library, again, has played a really important concierge role in some of that communication and information sharing. You've heard that quote that I read out from our mayor, but we have many within our community that provide leadership and advocacy, and they lead by sharing what they've learnt and they listen with their heart. We want to be a community where we're willing to be bold and be the change we want to see. We want to lead through compassion, inclusion, care and respect. So within our charter, we also spent some time thinking about how might we make that a more compassionate place. And many of the little idea bubbles that you see here on this graphic are things that are happening already. We do have a much higher uptake of advanced care planning than most other communities in Western Australia, and our hospital is outstanding for having documentation of advanced care planning compared to most other hospitals in our state. We have a very strong sense of volunteering. We run death cafes. We have Dying to Know days every year, and we have amazing artistic events. Given that I have 50 seconds left, please let me just show a couple before I share with you this case study. So we ran a Permission to Die public art event where we worked with community groups, artists and our Vancouver Arts Centre to create a project where we really allowed people to think about what death and dying might mean for them and those they love, and as a real way to increase death literacy. Part of that was working together to build this beautiful coffin that you can see, but as well as that, volunteers worked together to unwind donated jumpers, to create these little Permission to Die coffins that we left around cafes and businesses and other workplaces and clubs, which had a little instruction on how to make a flower. And the flowers were all around the coffin. People were encouraged to lie in the coffin during the display, and they were able to then have their photos put up against walls. People said things like, it brought up raw feelings that I weren't aware of about what I thought I wanted to happen to me when I die. It was also very apt as I just lost someone very dear to me before the exhibition opened. It helped me to come to terms with my feelings. And it made me realize I'm not alone with my feelings. And another, it made me contemplate my own mortality and reminisce about those loved ones who've passed away. I've relived that loss a little and accept it again too. And another, this has validated it's okay to make plans about death. And this exhibition that again was held in our civic spaces across 3 towns around Albany, Denmark and Mount Barker was called In Memory of Ordinary Things. And you can see the beautiful pieces that our community donated to the exhibition, along with the very short stories about why that was such an important memory of someone they loved. Videos were made of several of these and we've got them available as other assets for our community. So moving on now, you'll be shown the video in a second. I looked after Tony and Heather during their care, so I'm the health professional on this video. But the stars are really Heather, Tony and the community around them, and a real case study about what compassionate community looks like in real life as an example of how we can play our roles in end-of-life care, how we can form a network, and how we can confront some of those stigmas around both offering and receiving help. It's going to be played for you centrally in a minute, but I just wanted to let you know that we continue to work with both the Charter and this case study in community workshops. You can see one of our local chemists here, Terry White. They've all come together for a 1.5-hour workshops. We're really talking around what do compassionate communities mean? What is our charter? How does that play out for our business and us as individuals? So the work goes on and I really hope you enjoy the video. I'm going to stop sharing and allow Taya to play that for us.
Done in Albany, and yeah, we hope to be able to do the same.
I'm 75, I've had a marvellous life, way beyond anything I ever would have expected, and I don't think there's anything that I would not do again, and it's a bit sooner than I had planned on, but I'm not having any negative thoughts at all about the whole thing. I'm actually finding it an interesting project to see how it develops, and the good, the bad and the ugly.
We're fortunate in that Tony is just such a positive person. He doesn't see this as, oh, poor me and this, that and the other. He sees it in life. It's just life.
Right at the moment, this treatment has reduced the size of the thing in my brain, which is inoperable, of course, and it seems to be stable. But how long it'll be, could be a day, a week, a year, who knows? The standard answer is when you ask 3 months, and in 3 months I'll see 3 months. Heather's a marvellous carer. In fact, too good. She does everything for me and always has. If you didn't have a carer, I don't know how you'd get on. We saw staying in the Cancer Council accommodation in Perth for long periods of time, 6 and 8 months at a time. And the one we stayed in was the one that was mainly single people, and they had to do everything for themselves, feed themselves, do their washing, do everything. If you didn't have a carer, establishing any of these sort of networks or activating them in whatever form you choose to do it, I think would be quite difficult. We had for many years been riding with the Albany Cycle Club, but of course they're all less than half our age. But then the over 50s club we learnt about. We've been riding with them. Well, they started out just every Wednesday for a long time and we got to know them. There's quite a lot of couples in it and it's a very social club.
I started to think about all the people who I'd been talking to in our cycle group, and they'd all been wondering how Tony was going and saying, can we help? What can we do? How can we help? And I thought, we have this network in our cycle group of support, an awesome network. I just thought there must be some way where we can organise it so that it works well for Tony, it works well for Heather, and it works well for us. All I did was put together a timetable of when people would visit Tony and Heather. Heather was really reluctant to ask people to do something, to go out of their way, to come out. It was a fair travel, you know, some people it was an hour's drive, and she was very reluctant to accept that help. And I said, if we have a roster, it's like once a month, you know, we share it around, we all do something.
Pam approached me and said, look Heather, we can get a roster going so that there's always someone there so that you can continue going to the gym. It's important for you to keep healthy and fit.
That's as important for her as it is having visitors for Tony. When we go out there, all of us, we say, let's go outside, let's have a look at the garden. It's a beautiful property and he enjoys getting outside.
The last couple of days I've spent most of it out in the backyard where there's a lovely warm spot there until after lunch, and then I can go out the front there and sit in the sun, watch the bird life, watch the cows over the way. There's hardly any cars up this road. Something that's completely foreign to my life experience, and I'm enjoying the hell out of it. Right at the moment, the chance of me wanting to go to Perth and get another treatment is so low. It's not zero, but it's very close. I'd rather sit in that chair and look down that valley than be stuck up there in hospital, no matter how good it is, because it isn't going to cure it.
As a landlord, you couldn't ask for better tenants, but we don't think of them as tenants. They're our friends. You know, we've had New Year's with them, we've had Christmas with them.
We've been here for 6 years and they've become good friends, and he's very supportive of the current problem, and so our life has settled down here.
They said they'd like to come home, and I said, yeah, sure. If you want to come home. We'll help you in any way we can.
It was difficult for a while until we got this thing some time ago, which means that when she's not here, she knows that I can call her, or if she doesn't answer, Peter will get it. And if neither of them work, it goes to 000, who will say, what do you need, where are you?
But it's also to give Heather support as well, to reassure her that she knows that if she needs something, and it doesn't matter, 24/7, if she needs help, she just has to ring.
Young Siding is a support mechanism. There's a few others around that if you had to call on them, they would drop everything and just come.
What we rejoice in is the circumstances of someone who is loved in their community, whose community feels that they have the capacity to step forward, and that that person and their family is able to accept that love and care. I think particularly in a rural environment, the practical solutions that often people are willing to bring to the table, those are the things that get people through.
We're a close group, we've become closer because we're doing something like this. We're used to being a supportive group, but this is a different experience. But we're talking about it now. We're talking about the end stages of our life, and we often have conversations about what we're doing amongst ourselves to prepare for that. So those conversations are quite wonderful to have. Everybody's very keen to keep going, and I think as we continue, our growth and our development as individuals in a group will be quite special.
The more you see that actually this is just part of life and it's going to happen to me too, I actually think the easier it is for you to die yourself when the time comes.
Well, wonderful story about the cycling club as, the caring helpers, similar sort of model, and their friend Pam doing the connector work, when do people go, what do they do? Fantastic story. So thank you very much, Kirsten.